Hello students, I'm Sai Baba here. So I have discussed some problems in the previous class based on the calculation of moment of inertia and radius of gyration. So next I am going to discuss one more problem in moment of inertia. And after solving this problem, I will be discussing about the perpendicular axis theorem and two conclusions based on the perpendicular axis theorem. Come on, look at the problem here. This I wanted to solve in the previous class, but as the time was over, so I'm just going to solve this problem now. Look at the screen. I'm going to read the problem. Two uniform solid spheres having masses in the ratio 4:9 are made of different materials with the densities in the ratio 3:2. What is the ratio of, first part of the question, their radius of gyration about diameter. Then second part of the question, their moments of inertia about the diameter. So to find the ratio of the radius of gyration about a diameter, we have to first find the ratio of the radii. So you are given the ratio of the masses as 4:9 and ratio of the densities are 3:2. So let us write the expression for mass of the sphere in terms of the radius and density. So mass of the sphere can be written as product of its volume and density. Volume of the uniform solid sphere of radius r is given by 4/3 pi r cube. If rho denote the density of the sphere, and mass of sphere can witness volume into density, that is 4/3 pi r cube into rho. So mass of the first sphere are denoted by m1, the radius of first sphere by r1, and density of the material of first sphere by rho1. The mass of second sphere are denoted by m2, which you can write volume of second sphere into density of second sphere. Here R2 is the radius of second sphere, ρ2 is the density of the material of second sphere. So 4 pi by 3 gets cancelled. So m1 by m2 into ρ2 by ρ1. Will be equal to r1 by r2 whole cube. So ratio of the masses is given to be 4:9. So m1 is to m2 is given to be 4:9. And ratio of densities of the materials of the two spheres is given to be 3:2. So ρ1 is ρ2 is 3:2. So you can substitute on the left hand side. m1 by m2 equal to 4/9. ρ2 by ρ2, that ρ1, that means density of second sphere divided by density of material of first sphere. You can write 2/3. That can be equated to r1 by r2 whole cube. So from this you can try to find the ratio of the radii of the two spheres. you can write R1 by R2 whole cube equal to 8 by 27, or you can write R1 by R2 whole cube is equal to 2 by 3 whole cube. So if you take cube root both sides, you get R1 by R2 is equal to 2 by 3. Now moment of inertia of uniform solid sphere. About a diameter is given by I equal to 2 by 5 mr square. So moment of inertia of any rigid body about a given axis can be written in the form I equal to mk square, where m is the total mass of the rigid body and k is the radius of gyration of the rigid body about the axis. So you can substitute I equal to mk square on the left hand side. So you get k square equal to 2 by 5 r square, or k equal to r into root of 2 by 5. So radius of gyration of first sphere about its diameter can be written as r1 into root of 2 by 5. Radius of gyration of second sphere about the diameter is denoted by k2, that you can add r2 into root of 2 by 5. So k1 by k2 will be the same as r1 by r2, which will be equal to 2 by 3. So ratio of the area of gyration of the two spheres about the diameter will be 2:3. So if you want to copy the solution of the problem, you can take a pause and copy the solution of the problem. So coming to the second part of the question, you're asked to find, for the first question, you are given the answers here in the reverse order. So the ratio of the radius of gyration about a diameter will get 2:3. That means for first part of the question, answer is 2:3. In the second part of the question, you are asked to find the ratio of their moments of inertia about a diameter. So moment of inertia of uniform solid sphere about a diameter is given by I equal to 2 by 5 mr square. So moment of inertia of first solid sphere about its diameter, about one of its diameters, can write 2 by 5 times m1 into r1 square. So moment of inertia of second uniform sphere about one of its diameters is given by I2 equal to 2 by 5 m2 into r2 square. So ratio of the moments of inertia of the two spheres about a diameter will be ratio of the masses multiplied by square of the ratio of the radii of the two spheres. Ratio of the mass is given to 4:9. So m1 by m2 is 4 by 9. R1 by R2 we got 2 by 3. So you get I1 by I2 equal to 16 by 81. So for second part of the question, you get the answer as 16:81. So if you want to copy the solution of the problem, you can take a pause and copy the solution of the problem. So next I am going to discuss about the perpendicular axis theorem. Now I advise you to stop writing. So I am going to discuss the statement of about the perpendicular axis theorem. So now you just concentrate only to listen. So I will be showing you the notes or PowerPoint presentation of the conclusions later. So at present you please stop writing and concentrate to listen. So this perpendicular axis theorem can be applied for a plane rigid body. For example, you can apply it for a circular plate or square plate or rectangular plate, or you can apply for any plane rigid body, circular disc, etc. Let us consider a plane rigid body of any arbitrary shape. Then let OZ be an axis perpendicular to the plane of the rigid body. Then according to this perpendicular axis theorem, moment of inertia of a plane rigid body about an axis like OZ, which is perpendicular to the plane of the rigid body, will be equal to sum of its moments of inertia about any two mutually perpendicular axes in the plane of the rigid body and which intersect on this first axis OZ. So let OZ be an axis perpendicular plane of the rigid body. So you can consider to apply the perpendicular axis theorem, you can consider any two axes which lie in the plane of the rigid body and which are perpendicular to each other. That means the axis OX lies in the plane of the rigid body. The axis OY also lies in the plane of the rigid body. The axis OX is perpendicular to the axis OY, and the two axes OX and OY intersect on the first axis OZ at the point O. The first axis OZ is perpendicular to the plane of the rigid body. Of course, that means the three axes are mutually perpendicular to each other, but these two axes OX and OY lie in the plane of the rigid body. The axis OZ is perpendicular to the plane of the rigid body. Let I subscript X denote the moment of inertia of the plane rigid body about the axis OX. I subscript Y denote the moment of inertia of the rigid body about the axis OY, which also lies in the plane of the rigid body. Let I subscript Z denote the moment of inertia of the rigid body about the axis OZ, which is perpendicular to the plane of the rigid body. According to the perpendicular axis theorem, the moment of inertia of rigid body about any axis perpendicular to the plane of the rigid body will be equal to sum of its moments of inertia about any two mutually perpendicular axes in the plane of the rigid body and intersecting on the first axis OZ at the point O. So you can now look at the screen here. I am shown the statement of the perpendicular axis theorem. So those who are writing the notes, they can copy this statement as shown on the screen for the perpendicular axis theorem. So I am going to read the statement once. The moment of inertia of a plane rigid body about an axis perpendicular to its plane will be equal to the sum of its moments of inertia about any two mutually perpendicular axes in the plane of the body and intersecting on the first axis. So in the figure, the axis OX lies in the plane of the rigid body. The axis OY also lies in the plane of the rigid body. The axis OZ lies perpendicular, is perpendicular plane of the rigid body. Here IX represents the moment of inertia about the axis OX. IY is the moment of inertia about the axis OY. IZ is the moment of inertia about the axis OZ. So you can write IZ equal IX plus IY. Those who are writing the note, they want more time, they can take a pause and copy the notes. So next I want to discuss two results based on this perpendicular axis theorem, which we may use in good number of examples. So for example, if you are given a plane object, for example, in the case of a circular disc, after copying the statement of the perpendicular axis theorem, that means after copying the printed part, we can again stop writing. So let us consider circular disc. Suppose if the circular disc lies in the plane of the figure, then the axis which is perpendicular to the plane of the figure and which passes through the center of mass of the disc is called central axis. The axis which is perpendicular to the circular faces of the disc and which passes through the center of mass of the disc is called central axis symmetry. So let IZ denote the moment of inertia about the axis perpendicular to the plane of the disc and passing through the center of mass of the disc. That means IZ is the moment of inertia about central axis of symmetry, which is perpendicular to the plane of the disc and passing through the center of the disc. That means the central axis is perpendicular plane of diagram and directed outwards towards you. Now let us consider two mutually perpendicular lines in the plane of the disc and intersecting on the central axis at the center of mass of the disc. So x dash yx represents an axis which lies in the plane of the disc coinciding with one of the diameters of the disc. Y dash represents another axis which also lies in the plane of the disc and which coincides with another diameter of the disc, and the axis OY is perpendicular to the axis OX. Let I subscript Y denote the moment of inertia of the disc about the axis YO dash. IY is the moment of inertia of the circular disc about the axis YO dash, which also lies in the plane of the disc. Now all the diameters of a circular disc are equivalent to each other in all respects. I mean, moment of inertia of the uniform circular disc about one of its diameters can be assumed to be same as the moment of inertia of the disc about any other diameter. So if a moment of inertia of the circular disc about a diameter are denoted by capital I subscript small d. So Ix can be written as ID, Iy can also be written as equal to ID. So if you have used the perpendicular axis theorem, Iz equal to Ix plus Iy. Here Iz is the moment of inertia about central axis that is called moment of inertia about axis x dash y. That is Ix can be written as Id. Iy can also be written as equal to Id. I mean capital I subscript D. That means the moment of inertia about central axis of symmetry will be 2 times the moment of inertia about one of the diameters of the disk. Or you can say moment of inertia of circular disk about a diameter will be equal to half of its moment of inertia about central axis of symmetry. So moment of inertia about central axis of symmetry for uniform circular disk is of mass m and radius r is given by mr square by 2. So we can write Iz equal to mr square by 2. So moment of inertia of uniform circular disk of mass m and radius r about a diameter of the disk can be written as mr square by 4. In the same way, similar calculation can be applied for a thin uniform circular ring also. So if you consider a thin uniform circular ring, moment of inertia of thin uniform circular ring about a diameter can be written as equal to half of the moment of inertia of the circular ring about its central axis of symmetry. So moment of inertia of thin uniform circular ring about its central axis of symmetry is given by I equal to mr square. That means Iz is mr square. So moment of inertia of thin uniform circular ring of mass m and radius r about one of the diameters of the ring can be written as mr square by 2. So now look at the screen. So I am just going to show you the same conclusion on the screen. So those who are writing the notes, they can take a pause and finish writing the notes. I mean, you can copy this conclusion I have shown on the screen. So I am going to just read out the conclusion. The moment of inertia of a thin uniform circular disk or a circular ring about its central axis of symmetry will be double its moment of inertia about a diameter. So you can write Iz equal to, that means the calculation for this based on the perpendicular axis theorem, Ix plus Iy. Here Ix equal to Id as explained before. Iy is also Id. Iz equal to moment of inertia about central axis. Therefore, you can Ix is the moment of inertia about one diameter. Iy is the moment of inertia about another diameter perpendicular to the first diameter. So what Ix and Iy are equal. Each is denoted by Id. So Iz equal to 2Id. So moment of inertia of uniform circular disk about its diameter equal half of the moment of inertia about the central axis of symmetry. Here Iz represents the moment of inertia about central axis of symmetry. So those who are writing the notes, they can take a pause and copy the notes. To finish writing this, I am going to discuss one more conclusion based on the perpendicular axis theorem. So I am going to discuss one more conclusion. All of you please stop reading, just concentrate to listen. So in the list of the formulae I have discussed in my previous class, so in the previous class I have discussed the formulae for moments of inertia of some regular objects. If you consider thin uniform rectangular plate of length A and breadth B. All of you please concentrate only to listen. Don't write running notes when I am explaining. So moment of inertia of thin uniform rectangular plate about the axis was at perpendicular to the plane of the plate and passing the center of mass of the plate is given by m into a square plus b square by 12. A is the length and b the breadth of the plate. M is the mass of plate. So in the case of a square plate, breadth and length both will be equal, so you can write b equal to a. So I z, that means point of inertia of the square plate about the axis was at perpendicular to the plane of the plate. M into a square plus b square can also be written as a square by 12. So point of inertia of thin uniform square plate about the axis perpendicular to the plane of the square plate and passing through the center of the plate will be equal to 2ma square by 12, or you can write it as Iz equal to ma square by 6. So point of inertia of thin uniform square plate about the central axis of symmetry. That means about the axis perpendicular to the plane of the plane face of the square faces of the square plate and passing the center of the mass of the plate is given by ma square by 6. So you can apply perpendicular axis theorem to find the moment of inertia of square plate about any axis in the plane of the square plate and passing through the center of mass of plate. Suppose let us consider two axes in the plane of the square plate. This axis 1, axis 2. Axis 1 lies in the plane of the square plate. Axis 2 also lies in the plane of the square plate. Axis 1 is perpendicular to axis 2. That means the first axis is passing through the center of the plate and it is perpendicular to two opposite edges of the square plate. The axis 2 is also lies in the plane of the square plate and it is the axis 2 is passing through the center of the plate and it is perpendicular to the other two opposite edges of the square plate. So according to the perpendicular axis theorem, the moment of inertia of a plane rigid body about any axis perpendicular to the plane of the rigid body will be equal to sum of its moments of inertia about any two axes in the plane of the plate and intersecting on the first axis both at the central axis of symmetry. So Iz can be written as I1 plus I2. So by symmetry you can observe that the axis 2 is identical to the axis 1. The axis 2 passes through the center of the plate and perpendicular to opposite edges of the plate. The axis 1 also passes through center of the plate and perpendicular to the other two opposite edges of the plate. So by symmetry, you can say I2 and I1 are equal. So you can write I2 equal to I1. That means here in the basic equation for perpendicular axis theorem, which I have written as Iz equal to Ix plus Iy. Here I have taken Ix equal to I1 and Iy equal to I2. And I2 and I1 are equal. This you can write to I1. That means the moment of inertia of the square plate about an axis in the plane of the plate and passing through center of the plate will be half of the moment of inertia about central axis of symmetry. The moment of inertia about central axis of symmetry will be ma square by 6. So this k can be written as ma square by 12. So you can consider any two axes in the plane of the square plate. Suppose if you consider two axes in the plane of the square plate, I denote them as 3 and 4. So the axis 3 coincide with one of the diameters of the square plate. The axis 4 coincides, the axis 3 coincides with one of the diagonals, not diameters. The axis 3 coincides with one of the diagonals of the square plate. And the axis 4 coincide with the other diagonal of the square plate. The two diagonals of a square intersect each other at center of the square plate at right angles. Again, we can use the perpendicular axis theorem. The moment of inertia about the axis both that means about the axis perpendicular to the plane of the square plate and passing through the center of the square plate can be written as sum of its moments of inertia about any two mutually perpendicular axes in the plane of the plate and passing through the intersecting at the center of the plate on the central axis at the center of the plate. So Iz can also be written as I3 plus I4. So moment of inertia of the square plate about one of its diagonals will be same as the moment of inertia of the square plate about the other diagonal, because the two diagonals are equivalent geometrically in all respects. So therefore I4 can be written as I3. So Iz can be written as 2I3, or I3 can also be written as half of Iz. That means you can observe that I1 equal to I2 equal to I3 equal to I4 equal to half of Iz. So the conclusion is that the moment of inertia of thin uniform square plate about any axis which lies in the plane of the square plate and which passes through the center of the square plate will be equal to half of the moment of inertia about its central axis of symmetry. Now look at the screen. So now I am going to show you the conclusion of the discussion which I have just discussed. So I will once read out the conclusion which is shown on the screen. The moment of inertia of a thin uniform square plate about any axis in the plane of the plate and passing through center of the plate will be equal to half of its moment of inertia about central axis of symmetry. Come on, copy down this conclusion. So I have given the calculation for moment of inertia of square plate about central axis of symmetry. As explained, Iz means moment of inertia of the square plate about the axis passing through the center of the square plate and perpendicular to its square faces can be found by using the formula m into a square plus b square by 12. You have to take b square equal to a square. So that comes out to be ma square by 6. So those who are writing the notes, they can take a pause and finish writing the notes. Next, I am going to discuss about angular momentum of the particle. So now look at the screen. So next I am going to discuss about the term angular momentum. At first, I am going to discuss angular moment of a point mass or particle in the general way in a mathematical definition. Later, I will be specifically discussing about the angular momentum of a rigid body which is performing pure rotational motion about a fixed axis. So first I am going to discuss about the term angular momentum of a particle or point mass in the general way, which can be applied for any example, not only in rotational motion, in the general way. So this angular momentum of particle is considered as also one of the examples or applications of cross product of two vectors. So in mechanics, the position of a particle at any instant can be described by means of a vector which we call position vector. The position vector of a particle with respect to origin O of a coordinate system or reference frame is usually denoted by R bar. So the direction of the position vector R bar is taken from the origin of the coordinate system toward the particle. The magnitude of the position vector R bar gives you the distance of the particle from the origin of the coordinate system. As you know that linear momentum of a particle defined as product of the mass of the particle and linear velocity of the particle. So linear momentum vector P bar of a particle of mass m or point mass m moving with a linear velocity v bar is given by P bar equal to mv bar. The direction of the linear momentum vector P bar of the particle at any instant, same as the direction of its linear velocity vector v bar. So, from basic definition, the angular momentum of the particle with respect to the origin O defined as the cross product of R bar and P bar. So, look at the screen here. So, I am going to read out the basic definition of the angular momentum of a point mass or particle, as given in one of the applications of cross product of vectors also. So those who are writing the notes, they can also take a pause now. They can write the statement which I am shown on the screen. That is P bar is the linear momentum vector. I am going to read the definition of the angular momentum of particle. If P bar is the linear momentum vector and R bar is the position vector of the particle with respect to the origin O, then the angular momentum vector of the particle with respect to the origin O is given by, those who are writing the notes, they can take a pause and finish writing the notes. L bar equal to R bar cross P bar. L bar is the angular momentum vector of the particle with respect to origin O. R bar is the position vector of the particle with respect to the origin O. P bar is the linear momentum vector P bar of the particle with respect to the same origin O of the reference frame. So, from definition of the cross product of two vectors, as you studied in vectors, the magnitude of the cross product of two vectors A bar and B bar is given by mod of A bar into mod of B bar into sine theta. Theta is the angle between the two vectors A bar and B bar. So using that, its magnitude of angular momentum is given by mod of L bar. You can write mod of R bar into mod of P bar into sine theta or RP sine theta. The theta is the angle between the vectors R bar and P bar. To know the angle between two vectors by the graphical method, the two vectors can be drawn from same point such that tail of one vector is attached to tail of other vector. So you can attach the tail of R bar with the tail of P bar like this. Then this can be taken as angle theta. Theta is the angle between R bar and P bar, which you can also write L equal to P into R perpendicular. So I tried to tell you what is meant by this letter, which I have shown letter R subscript perpendicular symbol. This I read it as R perpendicular. That represents the perpendicular distance between the direction of the motion of the particle, that means direct of the linear momentum vector P bar, and the origin O. Can draw up a perpendicular from the origin O and the direction of the motion of the particle. Let capital P denote the instantaneous position of the particle, and r bar is the position vector of the particle at that instant, that is r bar equal to p bar, and small p bar represents the linear momentum vector of the particle. Direction of the linear momentum vector p bar can be produced both sides. N is the foot of the perpendicular dropped from the origin O, and the direction of the motion of the particle. So the length of the line ON gives you the perpendicular distance between the origin O and the direction of the linear momentum vector p bar. So in this triangle ONP, you can observe that this angle OPN will be equal to theta. Sin theta can be written as length of the side opposite theta divided by length of the hypotenuse ON by OP. So ON can be written as R subscript perpendicular. Length of the line OP gives a magnitude of position vector R bar denoted by R. So R perpendicular can be written as R sin theta. So magnitude of the angular momentum of the particle is given by L equal to R P sin theta, or you can write P into R sin theta, which you can write L equal to P into R perpendicular. Here R perpendicular represents the perpendicular distance between the origin O and direction of the motion of the particle. So you can copy the left hand side first. I would like to show the notes continuation to this. In case you want to copy this, you can take a pause and finish writing. So you can write the notes continuation to the previous slide. So where theta is the angle between R bar and P bar. R perpendicular is the perpendicular distance between the origin and direction of the motion of the particle. As I discussed, I have already shown the working. Same figure I have again shown. In case you have already copied the figure, it's not necessary to copy it again. In case you have not copied earlier, you can copy the figure now. OP bar represents the position vector of the particle. That means capital P the instantaneous position of the particle, and small p bar represents the linear momentum vector of the particle. And theta is the angle between R bar and P bar. So vertical opposite angles are equal, so this angle is also theta. N is the foot of the perpendicular dropped from the origin O, and the direction of the motion of the particle. So as explained before, in the triangle ONP, sin theta you can write ON by OP, that is R perpendicular by R. R perpendicular can be written as R sin theta. So those who want to copy the notes, they can take a pause and finish writing the notes. So you can also express magnitude of the angular momentum of the particle as R into P sin theta. You can resolve the linear momentum vector P bar of the particle into two rectangular components in the directions parallel to R bar and perpendicular to R bar. The component of the linear momentum vector of the particle, which is parallel to the position vector R bar, can be denoted by letter P subscript parallel symbol, which is equal to P cos theta. The component of the linear momentum vector P bar, which acts perpendicular to R bar, denoted by P subscript perpendicular symbol, which you can write P sin theta. So magnitude of the angular momentum of the particle can also be written as L equal to R into P perpendicular. Where P perpendicular is the component of the linear momentum of the particle, which acts perpendicular to the position vector R bar of the particle. So the unit of the angular momentum L will be equal to the unit of from the equation R, L equal RP sin theta. Sin theta has no units, so unit of angular momentum unit of R, that is meter, into unit of linear momentum, which you can write kg meter per second. So that is kg meter square per second. You can also write angular momentum, unit of linear momentum, as you know, studied in Newton's laws, can also be written Newton into second. So unit of angular momentum denoted by capital L can be written as unit of R, that is meter, into unit of linear momentum. We can write Newton into second. Newton meter is the unit of force into unit of displacement, that means unit of work. So unit of angular momentum can also be written as joule into second, which is same as the unit of Planck's constant H. So we discuss about this term Planck's constant H in the atomic physics in the physics. But of course, in chemistry in 11th class or in junior intermediate first year, junior intermediate classes in atomic structure also discuss about this term Planck's constant in the quantum theory of radiation. So that means angular momentum and Planck's constant have same units and dimensions. So in my next class, I will be discussing some special cases in the angular momentum.